Hi, welcome to the part 2 of chapter 3 of the data analysis course. I am your instructor Bhavishya Pandit and I'll be taking you through this part of the last chapter. Let's give it a revision of what we have had covered in the earlier part. So from the start, in the first part we have covered the revisiting the older concepts. We have covered like what a line chart is, how to plot a line chart using pandas, and then how to plot a line chart using Matplotlib. Similarly, we have understood what a bar chart is, how do we plot a bar chart using pandas, and then how do we plot a bar chart using Matplotlib. To again revisit about the data set is about the imports and exports of India. Imports was the import data frame, which consisted the data for all the imports of the countries of 241 countries from 2010 to 2018. Similarly, exports is for 2018 to 2010 data, exports of all the countries of different kinds, right? Like meat and edible and all of that, right? So in the part one, as I had said earlier, we have had seen a few functions that we have covered in the earlier chapters. We have had given it a revision like aggregated functions, group by, filtering data, visualizations using pandas, and all of that. And we also understood how you can customize your plots using Matplotlib. Now, in this part, we'll be focusing on mainly three types of plots, right? And obviously, a little bit of older concepts would also be getting revisited, right? So for that, we would focus here on the exports section. In the part one, we have covered the imports. Here in part two, we would be covering export, like analyzing. We would analyze export data, right? So let us see what do we have in exports file, right? So here in the exports file, we have HS code, commodity, value, country, and here, right? So I would want to see what is the shape of this data frame. Let's see the shape of this data frame. So here we see that the shape is 1,37,000 rows and 5 columns that we have. Let's see if we have any missing values or not. So I see that okay, there are 14,000 missing values in the column value. So value is for like what is the value of the export of that country in that particular year, right? So I just would want to drop those null values because here the analysis is not something that we are doing. We are just trying to visualize and learn how to visualize different type of charts and plots, right? So here using drop any function, we have dropped all of the missing values, right? And using is null dot sum, we are seeing the total number of missing values if we have, right? Now let us group the data on the basis of country and the year. So this would help me understand for a particular year for every country what has been the data, right? What is the sum of all? So let's say for commodity type A, Afghanistan had 2 units of exports, right? And for commodity B, it had 3 units. So for Afghanistan, if I would want to see for 2010, it would be 2 plus 3 and it would give me 5. That is what I want to see, right? So if I just run this cell, it would not only group by country, but it would also show me the year of it, right? So let's say for Afghanistan 2010, across all the different commodities that you see here, like meat and edible, offal, whatever that is, right? And then fish and then the dairy products, live trees and other plants, etc. Edible vegetables of all the different commodities that we would have. What is the total sum of it for 2010? It is 422. For 2011, it has 510. So that is what it is, right? For different countries, we have for every year. So I'm just resetting the index so that I get to understand and I get it in this form. I'm not dropping the column because I want this country column, right? And now I want to use the describe function. This describe function would do is it would give me all the deeper intricacies of the countries for this specific year, that is 2018, right? And here I'm storing it in the data frame exposed 2018, right? So if I run this cell, what all different intricacies would I get? The different intricacies we would get is what is the count. So we have 232 count, right? The count is 232, right? So we have 232 countries. Earlier we had 241, but it is showing 232. That means the values that we have had dropped, It has dropped for a few countries for the year 2018. For 9 countries it has dropped, right? What is the mean value, right? The mean is 1400. What is the standard deviation? The standard deviation is 4520. What is the minimum? Minimum is 0 export. What is the first quartile of it? 25 percentile, right? It shows that it is 10 units. What is the median, right? What is the second quartile? It is showing that it is 143 million US dollars, right? What is the third quartile? 75 percentile. 75 percentile, it is showing that it is $741 million, right? What is the maximum? Maximum, it shows that it is 52,405, right? So we try to see and understand how things are working, right? With that, I would want to introduce you to scatterplot. Coming on to scatterplot, how would scatterplot help us? Is it would help us understand what is the distribution of the data. It not only points the data points, it not only plots the data points, but it also helps us understand how correlated these data points are. Is there any correlation between the variables or not? And it is being plotted on the Cartesian coordinates as it is written, right? So let us understand and see how we can plot the scatter plot, right, using Matplotlib. It is very evident that we want to see here. What we would do is we would want to plot 3 different kinds of plots, right, in the scatter plot itself, 3 different scatter plots, and we would be segregating them. Now let us understand that the 25 percentile was 10, right? So here I would be taking 25 percentile as 20, right? I'm just taking, so I would consider it as in the low range, right? That it was a low trade. For medium, it should be greater than 20 and it should be less than 144, because here it has been 143, right? Then for high, we are taking it that it should be greater than 144 and it should be less than 742, because here it was 741 something, right? So, and why did we take 20 here? Because if you would have taken 10, there would have been very minuscule, very minute number of data points for us to plot on, right? How do we plot scatter plot? We use the function scatter. Okay. So here it is plt.scatter, right? I would be plotting low dot index. I would be plotting low, and I would be giving it a label as low level trade, right? Similarly for medium and high level, right? And then I would be using plt.title, right? And then I would be giving all of that, all of the values, like what is the legend. In legend, what do I want? What exactly is this? I will also tell. In what does X value stand for? What does Y value stand for? And then we would do it. Now, thing to consider is we are plotting 3 different plots, right? But since we are not giving any color, it would automatically choose the default colors. So for the first plot, it would choose blue. For low level, for the medium, it might choose orange. For third one, probably it would choose green. So if you would just run it, right, here we would see that the default, because of the default values, it is getting plotted. So here we see that the data points for high level trade, low level trade, and medium level trade, it is shown like this. So here you see that the legend, the location is upper right. So right. So if I do it upper left, and if I run it again, the legend would come here, right? So instead of upper, if I just change it to bottom, right, it would come at the bottom of it. Bottom did not work, probably it is down. Down also is not working. So here it shows lower right, not upper, right? So in the error you can understand where do you want it to plot it. So if I just write it lower left, right, and then run it, right, it has come on the lower left. If I write it center, it would come at center, right? So it has come at center. But the best place is we'll just write best so as to understand what the best place is. So it has chosen this place as the best place, right? So that is what LOC attribute does in the PLT function, in the legend function of Matplotlib. I hope you have understood what scatter plot helps in, right? And how it is useful. It not only helps us in segregating different values, but it also helps us in understanding what is the distribution of different categories of data in the entire data set. And if the data is correlated, it also helps us understand whether the data is correlated or not, right? Now, let's jump on to pie chart. Pie chart is a very interesting chart. Why? Because it depicts a very good distribution of data in terms of percentages, right? What is the total percentage out of what is the total percentage, and how does it represent in the what is the representation of it in the entire data frame, right? So here, as the definition also says, a pie chart is a circular statistical image that shows numerical proportions by dividing it into slices. In a pie chart, each slice arc length corresponds to the quantity it depicts, right? So out of this 360-degree, right, 13% of 360-degree shows savings, because here if you would see savings, it is 1900, right? Total might be something, right? But of that, 13% of that 360-degree is represented by savings. Similarly, for rent, 47% of the 360-degree is represented by 17,000. So 47%, that means it is close to somewhat around 14,500 or 15,000, the sum of it, right? And of that, 7,000 is going in rent, and that is exactly why it is showing 47%, right? Let's see how do we plot a pie chart in Matplotlib, right? So again, I would take imports of 2018 and I would take exports of 2018, right? Now, what I want to do exactly is I want to visualize the trade distribution for a specific year of India. So in 2018, of the total trade that has happened, what proportion was imports and what proportion was export, whether there was a trade deficit or not. So trade deficit is when we are when we have bought the items of other countries then sold to them. So let's say if I have bought 100 rupees from China but I have sold only 60 to China, then there is a trade deficit of 40, right? So that is what we want to see, right? When imports are higher than exports, then there is a trade deficit. So here what we would do is I have taken a data frame for the specific year, and then I have clubbed all the value of it. For the value, I have clubbed the value. I have taken an aggregated sum, which would give me the total sum of the imports. Similarly, it would give me total sum of exports. Right now, what I have done is I have taken it in a list. So for pie chart, what I would do is I would keep it as I would paste it as a list, and then for explode, I'd explain what does explode function does, right? And then I have given label. So the label has to be in accordance with the sequence of the list. So here, since the import has come first and then export has come, so exactly why I have written import here first and then export, right? Here 0 is explode is for import and 0.1 is for exports, right? Auto PCT gives me auto precision. So here it would give me the precision value up to 2 decimal places. That is what %.2f stands for, right? Here, if I would want to give colors. So for imports, because it is the first, it would be giving orange. For exports, it would be giving green, right? Shadow equals to true. That means yes, shadow is true. Start angle is 90. You would understand what that means. Here again, just like all the others, plt.title stands for the title that you would want to give to the visualization. Legend would show what color depicts what trade, and plt.show function is to show the data frame. So if I would just run it, you would see that the start angle is from 90 degree, right? And it is showing that the export is 39% and import is 60%. So there is a trade deficit in the year 2018 because import is greater than export. So let's see, if I would have changed or tweaked this parameter to 0.3, then how would it would have changed? So if I increase the value of this, the export section goes even more far away, right? This is especially useful when there are multiple categories or that you are plotting in pie chart. So here we have only two, but let's say you have five, and if you want to show or highlight a category separately, then you can use this, right? Again, there is no point of using here because it is already segregated, right? You just want to segregate the export section, and that is exactly why we are changing the first index of the list and not the zeroth index, because that is already segregated and that depicts import. Now, if I would change the start angle to, let's say, 60 degrees, right? What change would it give me? Let's run it and see. So now the start angle is 60 degree. So because it's 60 degree, right? It is starting from here, right? From this section, and then from 60 degree it has started, and then it is showing the rest of it. So start angle changes from where you want to plot it. So here I have kept it 90 degree. So it is starting from here. Right, it started from here and then it has plotted the graph. So that is exactly how we plot a pie chart, right? If you would have had multiple categories, you just have to write append values here in this list and have to append values in this list of trade, right? And exactly you'd be able to plot it, and that is exactly how it goes. Hope you have understood pie chart. Now let's come on to the last section of this chapter, of this part, that is subplot. So what does a subplot mean? What is a subplot? So as the name suggests, right, subplot means to have many plots in the main plot, right? So here if you would see, we are having only one plot, and in that one plot we have only one chart, right? Similarly for scatter plot, similarly for bar chart, right, and similarly for line chart, we have only, this is our main plot and we have only one plot. But what if you would want to have multiple plots in the same plot, right? So that is exactly where subplot comes into the picture. Now, a very good question might come into your head, that do we really, does it really plots all the same kind of plots, or can we plot multiple plots in the same plot? So yes, we can plot multiple plots in the same plot. Let us understand how we would be able to plot multiple plots in the same plot, or how can we plot same kind of plots in subplots, right? So here earlier we have had seen that import has been 60% and export has been 39.1% for the year 2018. Now I am interested in finding the import of 6 years, 6 consecutive years of India, right? So what I would do is, I have created two separate lists of import and export. I have a year from 2010 to 2015. Then what I have done is, I am simply appending the value of that specific year in these lists, and then I'm printing the lists, right? So if I would print the list, it would show me that this has been the import for 2010, this has been the export for 2010, this has been the import for 2011, similarly export for 2011, and till 2015, right? Now how do we plot it? To plot a subplot, we use the subplot function of Matplotlib. In this, we depict the number of rows we want and the number of columns we want, right? So if you see, and why do we have 3 into 2? Because 3 columns 2 rows, 3 rows or 2 columns gives us 6, right? And here we have data for 6, right? Figure size gives us the size of the figure. So here, if you want to change the size of this figure, that can be managed using fig size, right? If you would tweak this parameter, you can change the size of the figure. Here I'm using count variable to count the values as a counter, right? We can simply even remove it. It was just to see whether how many rows are actually being, how many different values are actually being taken into consideration, right? So what I would do is, I have created an, so what basically this AX does is, we have now access of it, right? So if I just cut this thing, and if I would just print AX, right, it would give us the values. It has plotted things like that is what the blank plot is, right? So, and here is the figure. Now I want to plot in this AX, right? So how do I do that? So here you see there is first plot, there is second plot, there is third plot, there is fourth plot, there is fifth plot, and there is sixth plot, right? So it is a nested list if you see. So the first value of this list is the first row, right? In that first row, let's say if I want to access this, so that is the first element of the first row. Similarly, this is the first element of the second row, this is the second element of the second row, this is the third element of the third row, second element of the third row, sorry, right? So if you would want to access it, you'll be able to access only when you are iterating via for loop, right? And that is exactly why we have a for loop here, right? So here, for every plot that we are iterating through, right, this I would make us enter in the first list, right? This J would help us iterate over every plot in that list, right? So this J dot set title gives us distribution for the year, right? And this count basically is helping us in understanding what year that is for. So let's say if the count value is 0, so for years count would come as count of 0, years of 0, right? So it would automatically print for 2010 it is, right? Similarly, for pie chart that you had seen earlier, j.pie chart, here we are printing the 0th index of imports with 0th index of exports, and we have kept explode. Here I had earlier shown you what explode does, right? We have kept the labels. I had also made you understand what auto PCT does. It gives us precision to 2 values. If you would want for 3, you can simply write 3 here, right? Colors, we have understood that it gives color. Shadow, we have had written, and start angle starts at 90 degrees, right? And figure dot super title gives the main title to it. So it is a year-wise distribution from 2010 to 2015. This title is for that particular subplot. That is this kind of subplot, right? This subplot it is for, not for the main plot. This is the main plot. That is the super title. This is the subplot title, right? So if I would run this cell, right, you would see that the precision is to 32 decimal places, right? So if I just do it 3 and if I run it again, you would see that the precision is till, it should come till 3 only. Okay, dot 3, my bad. Okay, the percentage should be before the decimal. Yeah. So if I just run it again now, so you would see that the precision is still 3 decimal places only, right? Now, since it is still 3 decimal places because we had done it for 3 decimal places. Now, if you would see that in this subplot title, we have had written distribution for the year what. So here it is showing distribution for 2010, distribution for 2011, and we have import and export distribution. We see that in most of the cases, not in most, in all of the cases, we are having a trade deficit. We are importing more and we are selling less, right? And here the super title gives us the main title to the plot, which is year-wise trade distribution for 2010 to 2015. And that is exactly how you plot for different plots, right? If you would have had plotted, if you would want to plot for, let's say if you would want to plot different plots, then what you can do is you can plot it separately. But here I did not separately, in the sense you can simply write, rather than the for loop, you can hard code it and you can write it in separate columns. You can write it in separate lines of code, right? But I did not want it to do that because I am plotting the same kind of plot, right? I had used a for loop, but you can use it. There is no necessity for you to use it. You can have multiple plots just like this, right? And you can use it. You can write multiple lines of code and then use it using uh, the figure size, right? Like for in what figure you would want to plot it, you can use that, right? J.py is helping you plot for that particular plot. I hope it made some sense to you and you have learned something new from this chapter of the course. Thank you very much. for staying tuned for this course, and I really hope you have learned something new from this data analysis course. I'm your instructor Bhavishya Pandit, and I'm signing off. Bye. Thank you.